Today's episode might be most interesting to those of you who are involved in some kind of church or parachurch ministry. As you know, Dream Support supports a lot of pastors, executive directors of nonprofits, and also business leaders. So if you're a business leader, this kind of be like the peek behind the curtain to that world a little bit. But if you are in that world, this would be of particular interest to you. If you don't already know, my name is Micah, and my wife and I own Dream Support. We built it from nothing, and we have been growing it since the tail end of 2018, where we served just over 60 hours at the tail end of that year to a couple of clients, and now we're regularly hitting between 1,200 and 1,400 hours a month between all the assistants that we work with and all the clients we work with. And we'd love to grow that, maybe to include you if you don't have a remote executive assistant just yet. You can find out more about that at dreamsupport.club. Now, today's interview is with Ryan. He is the pastor and church planter of River City Church in Vancouver, Washington. I think this would be a really, really helpful conversation, particularly if you are in that kind of boat, startup, church, planter, anything like that. This would be helpful to you. So here's my conversation with Ryan. Hey, Ryan, thanks for joining me today on this conversation. Really looking forward to having this conversation with you because we've been working with you for like 6 months now, I think.
Yeah.
And, that's a great check-in point to have a good kind of feel for how things have been going. And I think it's been going well. But before we kind of get into that, why don't you give a quick introduction of yourself and what you do and your church name?
Yeah. So my name is Ryan, and we're up in the Pacific Northwest, Vancouver, Washington, which is a suburb of Portland, Oregon. So we're in America. And we planted River City Church 5 years ago. And we have been leading this ministry ever since. So we planted 5 years ago. We were 10 months old when the pandemic hit, and so that really changed things for us. But here we're still here, and I believe that's by the grace of God that we're still here. And ministry now looks different, but it's bigger than ever. And we are just firing on all cylinders now. Busy, 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 but really good. So
Amazing. It's kind of funny, because I have family up in the Vancouver, Washington area. And when I tell people that, just like you, they're like, oh, you mean Canada? Like they all confused. And you're like, no. It's just over the border. It's right next to Portland. It's just in Washington, and people get confused. So I totally get the clarification you're giving there. As you think about that pandemic, 10 months in, pandemic hits, you guys are in the thick of it in the planting world. And then you have to pivot in some ways and adjust some ways. What are is there one or two things that you took away from that have left a permanent mark on how you do ministry, or have you sort of resumed to all pre-pandemic assumptions?
yeah, I feel like it changed everything for us.
Okay.
But one of the things that really hammered home for us is that we can't rely on our plans. And it's funny because I have a coach who was pushing me. Said, Ryan, I need you to plan 6 months out. You need to have what's the next 6 months are going to look like. And I think it was the week before the pandemic that I finally planned 6 months. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, see, I told you we can't, because all those plans went out the window. And so we've been pretty flexible ever since. But really just the ministry just looks so much different too. About we do I try to free myself up to do a lot more hands-on ministry and people ministry than trying to do the administrative stuff that is honestly a necessary evil for somebody like me
Yes.
who hates the administrative stuff. So
Totally get that. And you're a part of the Excel Leadership Network, which is
yeah,
a planting and leadership organization. Is that the coach you're talking about? Was it through that, or was it a different
It was a
organization?
different one, but yeah, shout out to Excel, good people over there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, mhm.
We support a few, and I've been a part of that organization as well. So thankful to have the connection there. As you progressed in your planting journey, and staffing is always hard when you're planting a church. It just is. You don't have a lot to offer in terms of employment for people, and therefore commitment kind of goes up and down with the times and the seasons. And maybe you get a teacher to jump on board to help you out with summer, and then school hits and they're nowhere to be found anymore. So how have you struggled with or dealt with the staffing sort of fluctuation?
Yeah, it's just learn as I go. It's painful, honestly, because uh, we've had to make some hard decisions,
Mm.
but one of the things that really, um, I guess here's something that I learned through the pandemic is that I need to be relying less on free agents and more on building a farm system.
Mm.
And so we're kind of raising up leaders from within our midst, as opposed to just kind of looking around and trying to recruit a bunch of leaders who are ready to do ministry in an established church context. But what we're doing is totally different. And so not to speak ill of anybody um, who's ready to do ministry in an established church, oftentimes Bible Belt context. But what we're doing is just so different that it's required, somebody who already gets it, who already sees it, who already loves it, who's been a part of the ministry to be raised up that way into leadership. So,
Yeah, I get that. You get the ones that maybe you knocked on their door, they knocked on your door, and they're like, "Hey, I'm available. I've got some expertise or some passion." And then you start going down the, well, what did that look like? What does that look like in our context? And they're like, well, I don't know if I do that.
yeah,
Um, that's not quite the platform I'm looking for. Or that's not quite the compensation I'm looking for. Or that's not quite the structure I'm looking for. And it can be hard to find the people who fit
yeah,
what you're doing. So if they already know it, if they already like it, if they're already a part of it, even better.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. And the one thing that, we had a conversation about, and, we were connected by JD, who's, one of the directors of Excel. I don't even know his job title. I just know he does everything and sort of started it. And he's around. And I also know, and he doesn't tell this, but other people will say this, he doesn't get a paycheck from the organization. So that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
But um, he connected us because he was like, "Hey, Ryan's a good guy. He might need some help up there. So tell me about that. Why you feel like he connected us?"
Yeah, so we were going through a cohort together. I forget which one it was, but we were talking about freeing ourselves up, uh, for lack of better terms, to be in our fast lane.
Mm.
And so what am I doing that's slowing me down and not allowing me to be the leader that God's created me to be? What are the things that I'm not necessarily good at or gifted at or that I don't necessarily love doing, things that make the hours feel long. And and how can I get somebody on my team uh, to
Right.
help me come alongside who honestly, my mindset at the beginning was I don't want to put this stuff that I hate on somebody else to make them hate their life too. But in reality, kind of what we uncovered was the stuff that I'm not gifted at, there are other people who are gifted in those areas that actually enjoy doing those things and making a difference in that way that I could tap to come alongside me and to help lead in that way. And so that's why JD introduced us. He said, I got this friend Micah who runs an organization that you may want to know about. He may be able to help you. So that's kind of how the
Yeah.
introduction happened.
Yeah, and you said something, your mindset was, "I don't wanna give someone else all the junk work that I hate." That wasn't your exact words, but all the work that I hate doing, I don't want someone else to hate it too. So you know, we get stuck there, I think, as leaders because we think, "Well, if I hate it, they know we're gonna like it."
Mhm.
What's wrong with them if they like it? There's sort of this little prideful thing, but actually, in reality, the surprising thing is you discover there are people that actually love doing the little tasks and the little organization things and the administrative parts that other people hate. And that's a picture, right, of sort of the body of Christ, the church working together to accomplish his great things. And even not in the same area, not in the same time zone, not in the same city, they can have equal passion for what you're doing, which might be a surprising part of the equation as well. So tell me about, you work with Dana.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, it's been about 6 months. We're going on 6 months here. What has that been like for you from sort of start to now?
Oh, it's been great. And one of the things that you just mentioned was me not wanting to do some of the little administrative things, and in reality, that's not even like I don't think that at all. Like these administrative tasks that may seem little to somebody with an administrative mind, they weren't like speed bumps for me. They were mountains, you know.
Mm,
And so, like even just church management database entry, like I look at that stuff and I'm just like, I feel like it just paralyzes me.
mm,
And especially when I get a long list of names. And so one of the things that we were running into pretty frequently is we've seen a large influx of first and second time guests come through our ministry, and I mean basically in the last 6 months we've seen over 700 first or second time
wow.
guests pass through the ministry, and so like when we talk about little administrative tasks, like I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And like how do we follow up with all these people? And so we started with Dana, we started just at the bare minimum because we didn't have much money. And well, not that any ministry really does. But we started at the
Yeah.
bare minimum, and I remember thinking at first, it's like I don't really know what to hand off. And so I started handing off just the data entry for the guests. But then as we got to know each other, one of the things I was really impressed by is just how quickly she learned our language. We're here in the Pacific Northwest. She's on the East Coast. But even being so far removed, she learned our language. She learned the words that we use and began integrating that into her conversation, even in her emails back and forth. But then when she would send correspondence out to others as well, and it was fantastic. And so what we've done now, just here we're 6 months into it almost, and we are moving now to 15 hours a week. We're basically just on that cusp where we're moving to 15 hours a week instead of the bare minimum that we started with, because she's added so much value to our team and to our ministry, and really just helped us be more effective in what
Right.
it is that God has called us to do. Going back to that analogy that I used earlier, Dana
Right.
has allowed me to be in my fast lane. So.
That's right. And tell me about that's amazing. I love the growth there, and that you've seen the value of her help to the point where you're like, okay, let's grow this. And a lot of people may not know, that may listen or watch, that we do have, we can start you off real small and then we can grow you right over time. And I love that flexibility there. But in the beginning, what was the process like from when we talked and you were like, hey, yeah, let's go. And then, learning more about Dana and meeting her and getting started, was that what was that process like for you?
Uh, Painless, I would say. I was so nervous. And I remember having like I had the conversation with you and that went super good. And you're like, hey, I'm gonna take what the information you've given me and I'm gonna try to find the perfect match. And I literally was thinking, okay, so like set a snooze reminder for a month to check in with Micah to see if, and I think I don't even know if it was 2 days later, but I got a message from you. It's like, hey, I think I found your match. And I was like, bet. Like, you can't find someone that perfect that quick. I was like, we're and so I remember we did the initial interview and I was just like, oh wow, this might be our person. And so it was just so painless and seamless and quick and easy. And Dream Support has really they've I don't know. They made it easy for people like me who, you know, I'm a ministry leader. I love people. I like leading a ministry, but I don't have a really big brain. You know, I'm not really good at stuff that requires this, and you guys have just made it so easy for me. So,
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for that. That was a little commercial there. Thank you. Yeah, and what's great, and I've heard this phrase before, and there's some truth to it and some whatever to it. It's one of those phrases you hear and you're like, ah, that's kind of cheesy. But that the term is, or the phrase is, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So the what we've got is a certain style of working, which is remote, fractional, flexible, and also as a former church planter, there's a lot of uh, people who come from church world who want to be support people, whether they currently work in a church or have before. We also work with business leaders and all kinds of leaders, but when we have that grouping of people who love to support pastors and ministers ministry, um, their network, they just talk about it with their network, and their network reaches out, hey, do you have any other openings? And so they all go through the same process, but there's always people going through the process. So even as I'm talking to new prospective clients, we have people taking tests, we have interviews being set up, and we have a database of people who want to work with us. So even if we don't have the person already that we're working with, we may have them in sort of our available pool, people who've been pre-vetted, that kind of stuff. And then we have people taking tests who are trying to get in that pool. So we're always moving that part of what we're doing so that it's not like waiting until we have an opportunity, but we're prepping for those opportunities as they come. So that's what made it, I think, super fast for you. And it's not always fast, but I love it when it is. It feels so nice, so satisfying to be like, hey, we talked 24 or 48 or 36 hours ago, but uh, I think we're ready.
yeah.
And that's super fun. So tell me about sort of the things that she's taken on right away and what she's kind of grown to as you've grown the package.
Yeah, so early on, she took on the church database kind of entry kind of stuff. But then also we have a unique fundraiser that we do where we sell coffee that helps support our ministry. Shameless plug, churchplantcoffee.com if you want some
There you
delicious
go.
coffee that supports church planting. But so as orders were coming in, I found that it was kind of just bogging me down to constantly be checking that list and to be entering and making sure that the coffee was going out. And so she took that on right away, and that really just freed me up, even just mentally. Like I was able to take a breath, and that freed me up to do some other things because I wasn't having to think about that so much. And that's kind of how it started. Uh, Fast forward to now, she's assumed for our team a project manager role where we have her forwarded on all of our church emails get forwarded to her inbox, and I don't know how she does it, but she reads all these emails. I don't know if she's using AI to read them or not, but like that's what I would do. It's like that's too many emails to read through. But then she's making each individual of our team, she's making them a to-do list item based on what our inbox is reflecting. And so, and she's able to follow up and see when things are done. So we either check something off our list or she does it for us. And then I was sitting at a coffee shop the other day, and I remember I was feeling so overwhelmed, and I had a mental checklist of 7 things that I needed to get done within the next hour. And so I was kind of bouncing back and forth between projects, and I got a text from Dana, and she said, "Don't forget to respond to this email by the end of today." And it was that text that made me respond to that email right then, that otherwise I would have forgot to do it, because she had read that, hey, we need this answer by the end of the day. And so the way that I've just kind of referred to it now is Dana is my brain. She just she just she's literally my brain. I don't even have to think anymore. I just do the stuff that I'm supposed to do. And there was this was really good. There was a really good there was an email that came in, that it wasn't that much, but it was like, I mean, it was a long email. And every time I opened the email, I just felt so overwhelmed by it because it was just too wordy. And it was taking too long to get to what they needed from me. And so, and I don't know if anybody else is like this, but like I just every time I open it, I just like save it for later, snooze, like just remind me again tomorrow. And Dana just messaged me. She said, I think she probably saw that I kept snoozing it. She goes, "Hey, do you want me to take care of this email?" I was like, "Is that something you can do?" She goes, "Done." I was like, "Whoa, that's so awesome!" Like she just took care of it, and I now I'm just like, yeah, just take care of all those emails for me. It's been really good. So
Wow. I mean, so let's go back to that when she texted you and said, "Don't forget to reply to this." What was that an important? I mean, obviously, it was had time sensitive, but what was the weight of that? What was at stake?
it we were updating our website, and all basically the update was happening at midnight that night, and I had to be sure that there was one page in particular that was very vital to what we believe as a church and what we believe about Jesus. And so it was of the utmost importance. And so, but the urgent was kind of drowning that out because I was getting texts from other people being like, "Hey, can you send
Yeah.
me this list, and can you do this?" And so it kind of just fell off. And so she reminded me, "Hey, just a reminder, you've got to check this website, make the edits that you need to edit, and then make sure this gets back to your communications director before the refresh of the website." And I'm so glad that she did, because I would hate to have had that website published without that page on there and updated. So it was
Right.
really important. So
Awesome. Uh, you know, one of the things that holds people back from working with someone like Dana, which we call a remote executive assistant, is first of all the remote aspect, which the sort of barrier to that has lowered a lot over the years because of how people have adjusted work.
mhm.
Uh, but some of the things that they think about, well, how would I possibly do that? How would this work? So one of the answers to that is sort of the tech stack, or how you work together. What are the technical things? What is the technology you use, the websites, the services? So what have you guys found to communicate, track tasks, all those kinds of things? What is your specific way of doing that?
Yeah, so simple things like email and text obviously are heavily relied on. Zoom, we meet on Zoom all the time, but more unique, we use a service called Todoist. So like to do list, but without the L.
Right.
Todoist, and that's kind of where our project management stuff gets done. And then we just utilize Google Suite, Google Docs or Google spreadsheets for stuff. Like we did a church event where we needed help with a sign up sheet for an interest form in a men's fishing trip that we were doing, and I asked her, can you help me with this? And not only did she do it so well, but it looked better than if I would have spent 100 hours on it. It looked better than that, and it took her like 30 minutes or something to have everything just perfect, you know. And so I mean, honestly, less than 30 minutes. It was super quick. So yeah, so that's the tools that we use
Yeah.
currently. So
So nothing super fancy. I mean, it's stuff that's accessible to everybody. It's not like you've got some secret, you know, war chest of tools that
no, and everything that we use right now is honestly free. So like even Todoist, there's a paid version, but we're a small enough team that we're on the free version. So yeah,
yeah, I'm a fan of using the free version as long as possible until you absolutely cannot survive
yeah,
on the free version anymore, and then, upgrading if you need to. That's kind of how I do things too. It's that old church planter in me that's like, we're gonna maximize this
yeah.
situation as long as possible. So if someone was to be thinking about, getting someone like Dana to support them through us, or however they might do that, not through us, what would be your advice to them?
My advice would be to really just what helped me was I made a list of everything that I do in a regular week, a regular day, a regular week, a regular month. What are the things that are on repeat? And I just made a list. It's like, what are the things that I'm really good at and that I love doing? And so I made, put those over there. And it's like, what are the things that you know, that I love doing, but I'm not that good at? And then I made another list that said, what are the things that I don't like doing, but I have to do?
Mm,
And then the final list, so I made four. The last one was the things that I really don't like doing and I'm not good at. And so, and when I actually sat down and wrote that stuff out, I realized just how lopsided my workload was, how
wow.
little I was able to focus on the things that I love doing and that I'm really good at, and how much I was having to focus on the things that I hate doing and that I'm not good at. And so it was at that point that I was like, okay, so maybe I should get somebody to help me with these things so that it would free me up to be more effective in the things that only I can do or the things that I love doing that I'm really good at doing. And so if somebody is truly considering or wrestling with, is this right for me? That's where I would start. I would say make a list like this. And if everything on your list, if you're like, man, I love doing everything that I'm doing and I'm good at all of it, then this is not for you. But if you've got those things that you're like, man, I really don't like doing these and I'm not good at them, that's where I would start.
Mhm.
Find somebody who can take those things off your plate. And then if you're like me, that will only grow. The list of things that you need to offload that you can focus more on what you're really good at and what you love doing.
Well, that's really good. You're describing sort of the quadrants of the entrepreneurial operating system, the
Yeah,
EOS
yeah,
system, there. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, cool. Yeah. Well, I think this is a great place to kind of stop, and just really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today and learn more about your experience and also what's going on, and how you've grown with Dana and Dana's grown with you over the time. We're excited about the future and excited to see what else you can handle, take things off your plate as you continue to grow and serve not only the people in your church and in your community, but also following up with all those 700 people. That's a good amount of people to be following up with. So excited about the future.
yeah. Thanks, Micah.
Yeah, thank you.